wanna stay ahead of the curve, then follow my words. All we doing, teach, train, innovate, solve, yeah. Teach, train, innovate, solve. If you wanna be ahead of the curve, then follow my words.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. To TTIS, where we build empowered educators, providing you with strategies, giving you practical tools that you can use today. And as you see tonight, I started out with our topic. We're going to be discussing the knowledge of learners. And in particular, one of the 13 categories that students can qualify for special ed services, which is autism. And autism awareness is not just about knowing the characteristics, but on the SPED 186 exam, it's about how the characteristics drive your instruction decisions. We're going to land in domain 1 and all parts of domain 1 as we talk tonight. And in particular, we're going to demonstrate the knowledge of idea, which is a law that is all throughout this exam. And in particular, we're going to talk about the eligibility categories for special education and related services. We're going to do that for the entire month of May. And one of those categories, as I said before, and what we're spotlighting tonight, is autism. But I want to help to center around this conversation. The exam is not talking to you about whether or not you recognize it. So those are not the type of questions that they're going to have. But the type of questions that they're going to have are going to be deeper dives, asking you about what you do in regards to when you do recognize students with autism. And again, tonight we're going to walk through understanding autism and using that same lens that the test is going to use. And our agenda is going to be really straightforward. What the test expects you to know, what instruction looks like for autistic students should look like, and then applying the strategy that we've been going over for the last couple of weeks about you noticing the data, you understanding the need, and you selecting the correct action in order to help to drive proper instruction. And with that, I go back to my original statement. What do you do because of what you recognize? There are impacts that happen with the students that have autism. And programs and online courses, they start with explaining all of the intricate parts of autism. And I'm not going to say that you don't need to know that, because you will. But sometimes their descriptions start out with statements like the student has autism. And then it's very generalistic. Or they can go on the whole other end where it's too detailed. But our focus tonight and the focus on this exam is that the student demonstrates difficulty with social communication, sensory regulation, and executive functioning. And this will impact their participation in the classroom, and in particular, most often in group instruction. Because autism is not equal to one profile. I cannot put one particular profile on autism because it falls along a spectrum. And signs of autism often happen early in age, but they vary. This exam is focused on 4 key things: the developmental process, the executive functioning, the learning, and the social skills. These all will be impacted. So you're going to be looking for things like sensory sensitivities within those questions, communication differences, maybe even their need for predictability, and of course, as I stated before, executive functioning delays. And if they're just giving you answers that focus on labeling student with autism, it's going to be wrong. The focus is on the impact of learning and behavior, then you're getting closer. And that's where we want to be. We're looking to make sure that we understand that impact. We understand the key difficulties and the areas in which students are unable to access the true integration of what the least restricted environment should be. And that's what they're going to put on the exam. Another key point from what the exam is going to be testing is your capabilities of doing the following. Are you able to differentiate instruction? Do you know the multiple modalities paired together that will help the student in order to advance? And can you provide access to grade level content where there is some barrier that is holding that behind for this particular student? And most of those things are going to fall along the four before mentioned areas in which I talked about. And before I get deeper into the idea of what autism aware instruction looks like on the exam, I want to ask you a key question. Have you kind of realized that you might need more than just another practice test? If you have, I want to give you a thoughtful next step. Before you take your next Texas exam, it's important that you understand the areas in which you need to be strengthened. That's what we do inside the Texas Blueprint session. We review your performance. We help to map out the specific competencies that need attention and give you a focused plan to make your studying intentional. If you are ready to stop guessing and start passing this exam, I want you to book your Texas Blueprint session, and I'm going to leave the information down below for you to do just that. And I'm hoping, as I'll share a little bit later, that you'll have the same experience as one of my viewers. So what does instruction look like for an autistic student? Well, there's really four ideas. The very first one is that is structured and predictable. This is where you would include visual schedules, have and provide a clear routine for them. And all of those questions are going to align with the learning environment being designed properly, as well as accessibility. My next area is the multimodal instruction. We learn on different modalities, three in particular that over time various theorists have talked about, and that's visual, kinesthetic, and auditory. And the pairing of them is going to be best practices. Now, this exam loves this because it aligns to providing access across learners' needs. And we already have established that this particular learner need has to do with development, executive functioning, social skills, and their learning may be delayed. Why? As I said before, you're going to look for communication differences. You're going to look for sensory sensitivities. All of these, if they are severe, can definitely delay a student's understanding of the curriculum. The third one is to scaffold and provide explicit instruction. This is where we're modeling, we're chunking information so that students understand it, and of course, guided practice. The connection to the exam is exactly that. Within the study guide, it says explicit, scaffold, and systematic instruction. And if you need a deeper dive on that, we have a video in which I talk about that as well. But explicit, it's a certain order to it. And then when a student doesn't understand, scaffolding, giving them from concrete, building them up to the abstract. And of course, systematic. That's that approach where I can't skip steps. I can't go faster. I have to make sure that they understand what I'm talking about. And then lastly, maybe the need for assistive technology. You've got the three different levels in which they um, place them in: low tech, medium tech, and high tech. Maybe a low tech is a visual support. Maybe a high tech is a communication device where they are speaking into it to tell you or to express to you what their thoughts are. If you see tech used to increase access, that's probably a very strong answer, but that's just a general tip. Don't want you to fall into the common traps that we often see, that we give the students the same assignment with encouragement. It's wrong because there's no differentiation in there and there's no access to support. Just there's a book that I used to love to read, and it's that I can't tell the person by saying it louder. Me saying it louder is not explaining it well. But again, that's a common trap, and we definitely don't want you to fall in that. So there's some critical autism related questions that'll be asked of you. And when they're asked, we want you to be prepared to know how to respond. And two of the responses that I will say are preventative systems, number one, and making sure that if it's in the area of behavior, which is what I have on your screen, and you have to make certain it's not a reactive, punitive punishment type of answer, because it's going to be a poor choice. Strong answers are going to include visual supports, clear routines, and the conversation around PBIS, positive behavior supports. All of those answers should be positively related. They might even discuss an FBA or a BIP, and you need to be prepared to know what those terminologies mean and how they relate to the conversation with the student, because behavior is communication. So instead of trying to stop this behavior, the exam is going to want you to identify the function of the behavior and teach a replacement behavior. There's all kinds of examples of that with the various strategies. And something that they mention within this competencies is de-escalation strategies. If you'd like to know more about some of the notes and information that we provide to our current cohort candidates, I'd love for you to join us in our SPED community. And again, I'll leave that in the show notes. And make sure that you like and subscribe, because oftentimes we don't know you're there, and I want to know that you're here. It also helps to advance our channel. But let's talk about some of the traps. One of the biggest traps that you will see in the descriptions, what I call the distractors, the multiple choice questions, will be to remove the student immediately. That's not a intervention. That's a reaction, and a poor reaction. Okay, so this is really where you hone in on what the exam really expects from us. And this I talk about within the strategy that I've been mentioning: recognizing the data, understanding the need, and providing an appropriate action. And so let's practice that together. In this scenario, we have a fourth grade student receiving special ed services, demonstrates a difficulty during classroom transition, and is avoiding participating in group activities. The classroom observation indicates that the student becomes anxious when routines change and rarely initiates or responds to peer interaction. The student performs well during independent tasks when expectations are clearly defined. Before I go into data, need, and action, I want to ask you, is this a content issue or is this a functional behavior issue? And that will help you as well when you're thinking through these exam questions. But now going straight into the data, the need, and the action. Well, the data tells me that they avoid group work and that the clear struggle is transition. Need is the social communication support and predictability. Now, we all know that we work in settings where predictability can't always be there. There are things that pop up, but there is a routine to our day. And for me, we can set a general schedule and standard for them. So here I ask you, what action should we take? I'd love to hear your response. And I'm going to talk more about this week in our SPED 186 community. So be sure that you join us for a deeper conversation with the 4 multiple choice along with it. Autism questions often hide in, they won't necessarily say the word autism, but they're going to hide within questions that talk about transition difficulties, sensory overloads, and social breakdowns. And you need to be aware of that even though it might not be named that in the question itself, because if you look at our question, it doesn't say it straight out. You have to infer. And even though they don't say it straight out, they're going to expect you to understand what moves you should make. For autistic students, there are some specific moves. First off, I want to collaborate with the family. More than likely, there's going to be more than one specialist providing services. One of the ones, typically, if there's a communication barrier, is the speech language pathologist or the occupational therapist, or we go on to other related services. And of course, the collaboration with the general education teacher. The specific moves that I'm going to say need to be is your communication with the SLP or the communication issues and concern. If there's a behavior concern, the behavior specialist. And then also the guardian or the parent, so that we understand and can provide them with consistent strategies that can translate into the classroom. But here again, I note another distractor that's also placed in there. Is this thought that you or the general education teacher has to handle it independently. That is almost always wrong. I hope that tonight's session was a great support. And recently, I had a YouTube participant, viewer, that I want to shout out. I was so happy to hear their that they were winning. They shared with us on one of the videos that they passed by using our support. And I hope to hear more about that. This makes my day because truly, this is my profession. I'm in love with it. And if I can help those who are in need, in particular, in high need areas, to pass this exam and do well in their presentation and in the classroom with our coaching services, then I'm doing my job. I'm continuing to spread the passion and leaving a legacy for the educational world. That's my goal. That's what I want for you, to realize your goal, to be able to support you as you go on. And so kudos to this person that shared with us that they have passed. I hope that they will send me an email and share with me their information so that I can therefore help them on a little bit further. But all right, everyone, as always, I am grateful to be able to be here with you tonight to share my joy and love for this. And I want to thank you for always being a participant. There are several areas and ways in which our company can support you. Here, right now, as a YouTube session, opening up understanding about one of the 13 eligibility criterias or categories. Another way is which is SPED community. Another entry point is our SPED community. And then another one is our Texas Blueprint. It's what I talk about quite a bit, because if you understand where your strength lies and where your weak areas need to be beefed up, you're going to do much better on your next attempt. And then I would love to walk you through our SPED cohort. We offer class number 5 for free. And again, I'm going to leave that information down below for you. If you're needing some intrinsic, deeper support, we provide here and in our community. We're ready to help. We're ready to support you. And I hope that you have a great evening. Another Monday full of strategy. Another Monday helping you to get ready for your exam. All right, everyone. Have a good evening.